If there's one thing that this book is going to teach you, it's going to teach you that no man is above the law. Hey, what's up, bookworms and inquisitors? Mike back today to talk a little bit of a review copy for a book that is releasing tomorrow, February the 22nd. This is The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan, the first in a planned trilogy called The Empire of the Wolf. Now, I was sent a digital review copy from Orbit Books in exchange for an honest review, so I want to thank them for that. And, of course, thank you, Mr. Swan, for, writing the book. That's always something that I feel like we never thank enough as the authors for putting in the hard work of doing this. Now, the only thing I'll say about that is I wish I would have got one of those physical arcs of this because they're just beautiful. They got the really embossed print that says no man's above the law in the front. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to be buying the actual copy of the book now when it releases because, long story short, guys, I like this book quite a bit. We're going to kind of talk about why. But you guys wonder why in my book haul videos, I will always say that I encourage self-published authors to chase their dreams, because Richard Swan is an example of this. That it can happen, guys. You can self-publish, you can get caught on by someone like Orbit and get a nice 3-book deal from them. So, he's wrote before, I think it was called Art of War Trilogy. It was actually sci-fi, so this is not only his fantasy debut, but his big label debut as well. So we're going to treat this very much as a debut novel, and I will just say, for a debut novel, this is an incredibly strong debut. I mean, this is pretty much, this is like the Hootie and the Blowfish of fantasy authors. Like the first album comes out, it's like out of nowhere, and I think that it's really, really great. Now, that might be a really, really weird comparison, but that's what we're going with now. Yes, this book is the Hootie and the Blowfish of debut novels. But let's go ahead and talk about what is the book about, you guys. Now, as the Emperor's Justice, Sir Conrad von Volt always has the last word. His duty is to uphold the law of the Empire using whatever tools he has at his disposal, whether it's his blade, the arcane, or secrets passed down from justice to justice, or his wealth of knowledge of the laws of the Empire. But usually his reputation as one of the most revered and hated justices is enough to get almost any job done. When the justice investigates the murder of a noblewoman, he finds his authority being challenged like never before. As the simple case becomes more complex and convoluted, he begins to pull at the threads to unravel the conspiracy that could see an end to all justices and a beginning to the lawless chaos across the Empire. And guys, that takes us into the debut novel, The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. Now let's do it like usual, guys. Let's get into what makes this book good or bad. I like to start with the good, and I have a very fair amount of it here. And I gotta say, I like this one because it doesn't feel like just another rehash of the same kind of fantasy you've read before. It feels very much unique in the way that it almost feels like it could take place in modern day if, say that our technology really never evolved past the Industrial Revolution. It really feels like it could be modern in a way, except, with a couple of supernatural abilities kind of thrown in there. It's an incredibly mysterious book. And I mean that in a way that almost imagine Conrad as Poirot from Agatha Christie. And it's very much like him trying to solve one of his very, very complex cases. And it keeps you guessing the whole way, except this version of Poirot has got a couple of let's say magical powers. But he's got some things. He's got some extra tools that Poirot never had besides the power of deduction here. I don't know if Poirot is really what I was going for here. But, a lot of people always talk about Sherlock Holmes. I always fall on Poirot because, I like Agatha Christie more than Arthur Conan Doyle. But that's a discussion for another time. But, yeah, the mystery in this, guys, it just kept me guessing right up until the end, and I'm going to be honest with you. I was wrong. I was wrong on the actual conclusion of some of these things, but it will keep the wheels turning upstairs a lot while you're reading this. You'll have lots of ideas and theories along the way, and some of you might figure it out. Me, I'm always more of a along for the ride type reader, so I rarely figure these things out, but I did have my guesses, and they weren't right, but I was satisfied with where they went. But again, I think anytime you got a fantasy story like this, you're expecting a lot of the same kinds of things, and this being very much a murder mystery kind of case book was very refreshing. And the fact that I can't think of another style of fantasy book that this is like. All these new fantasy books that come out, they always say it's this meets this. And it's usually blank meets Game of Thrones because no one knows how to do anything anymore. Anyhow, but it doesn't feel like anything else, so I can't compare. I've seen some people say it reminds them of Witcher. I don't get a lot of Witcher out of this at all. But again, with me, I kept falling back to Poirot because I really much felt like it was just a medieval mystery novel. That's what I felt like it was. But he sets a lot of hooks for things that have yet to come. But there's some skills that Conrad has in this that I want to talk about, but I don't want to tell you what they are, because when you experience them, reading them, it's such a really cool thing that I feel like I would be spoiling for if I tell you what his abilities are. So I'm not going to tell you what they are. I'll just say that what they made me think of a lot was like something like the Bene Gesserit from Dune would do. And that is obviously something that's going to be very near and dear to me. So the idea that Conrad has this ability is just like, okay, well, I want to know more about this. So you want to know more about the Justices. You want to know more about the Inquisition, all this stuff along the way. And I feel like he gives you enough little tidbits along the way to know things. Like you get your backstory a little bit about Bressinger, who's a very good supporting character in this novel, and obviously about Conrad. But Helena is a character we got to talk about here, because while I'll say I feel like Conrad is the main character of the book is told from the point of view of his scribe, Helena. And a lot of instances, I'd feel like, well, that's kind of not what I was sold. So I want to be upfront about you guys. At first, I kind of felt like, I don't know how I feel about this. Another story where someone recollecting something that already happened, and it's from a point of view that's not even the character I want to know the most about. It's done really well. And I think now that I look back, I'm like, I don't think it could be done another way. Because I feel like if you were in Conrad's head the whole book, I don't know if it would have had quite the mystery and the excitement and the ways it kept you guessing the whole way. So I actually think that was a really neat narrative decision by Mr. Swan here. So Helena is a character I want to know more about. Obviously, you get little tidbits as well. But like I said, I want to know more about Conrad. I know more about Bressinger along the way. So again, you get some answers in this book, but there's lots of stuff that's kind of left open for you to kind of interpret on your own, or maybe more likely we're going to get in the sequel books, right? So I felt like this book was really, guys, it was just fast paced. It was all meat. I never felt bored. I never felt like there was anything. It was like, all right, let's get on with it. Anything like that. Very fast paced. Will keep you guessing the whole way. And again, I love a good mystery. Just anything that has a mystery in a fantasy setting is going to be some of the coolest stuff out there. And again, like I said, very unique in that I can't think of another series that this one reminds me of at all. And that's quite a feat, especially for a debut author. Now, when we talk about the bad or the not so good, as I like to put it, guys, I want you to understand these are going to be subjective. The way that I do my reviews here is these are things that if you don't know if you like certain things or not, these will kind of give you an idea of if you should read the book or not. Because if these things that I list as maybe the not so good really, really bother you, it might be a skip for you, but I don't think it's going to be anything that really brings you down. So I want to kind of explain that in case it's the first time you found the channel. The bad here, I got to say, the Helena romance is just okay. It's nothing really great, but it's not that big a part of the book. It's very small. So it's nothing that's ever going to like be like, oh God, not this again. I don't think you ever really get there. There's nothing cringe about anything here. None of the dialogue is bad. I actually think his dialogue is really good. Again, for a debut author, this is really impressive. The dialogue felt snappy. It felt witty. It never felt like something where it was like, no one would talk like this in this setting. But again, like I said, it does feel kind of modernized in a way that most medieval fantasy will not. So I'm turning the bad into a positive here. But there is a romantic interest for Helena, and it does have some of those things where you're kind of be like, oh God, really? But again, it's such a small part of this book. It's never going to be anything that kind of brings you down a little bit. This is a personal one for me, guys. I do not like singular first-person perspective. It always brings me down in a story like this, but I think the way that he does it's great because it's not the main character. Like when I griped about Darrow from Red Rising, I said what I didn't like about the first-person perspective there was like Darrow was sold as always the smartest guy in the room. So you as the reader being inside of his head, why do you not know what the plan was the whole time? How is he the smartest guy in the room when we didn't know this? Telling it from her perspective, not knowing what Conrad's going to do, I think that is just genius. It's a great way to do it. And again, first-person perspective, and then also being told as a recollection of past events, I think is a way to kind of get around that. But I think a problem with this though is I did want to know more about Conrad. I did want to know more about Bressinger. And the biggest thing is when these groups split up, I want to know what Conrad and Bressinger were doing. I didn't want to know what just Helena was doing. Because there is a big part where she kind of goes off and does her own thing for a minute. And I'm like, okay, well, what are Conrad and Bressinger? Two characters I'm very, very much enjoying. What are they doing now? So you do take like a long break from them. And that's the kind of the parts where I'm like, I mean, I still like the story, but I was like, I want to know what those other characters are like. So I kind of wanted that group to stay together. So again, that's a first-person perspective thing that really is always just going to bother me. And the conclusion to the mystery, guys, it's not going to work for everybody. There's going to be some people who feel kind of let down by it. It was very satisfying to me. But I have talked to some other people who did read the review copy and were kind of like, yeah, but the way the ending was, this kind of wasn't for me. I don't think that, again, I feel like this is kind of a, it's like a Dresden Files book, guys, where you've got your case, right? But you've got your overarching story up here. And he's doing his case, but he's planting them seeds for what's going to happen up here for books 1 through 3, I think. So again, I don't have any problems with it, but it might not be the conclusion that you are hoping for. So let's talk about why you should read it, guys. Now, first off, I'm going to say, I think it's important to support debut authors like this. Because it looks very much to me like this guy chased his dream and he made it, right? I mean, you don't know, now it's go time. Now it's got to be results time. So I'm not going to say read it just because it's a debut author, but I'll tell you, you won't be disappointed in this. You're going to like this book, and I think that this is a guy that's got something here. He's got a really neat idea, and I think it kind of needs support from people like you, especially in this community, which can be very, very much, a herd mentality. Okay, well, everybody's reading this book right now. I need to read that book. I think that this is going to be one of those. This is going to be one of those that for word of mouth is going to get around about how good this really is and how approachable and low commitment I think it is. It's a very fast-paced story. It doesn't have a big complex magic system. Doesn't have an amazingly large cast. He doesn't spend hundreds of pages building his world. That's a negative for some people. But again, if you're just wanting like a quick, low commitment palate cleanser, I think this is going to be perfect for what you're looking for. And it's the type of book that I think it's got to close off enough ending of book 1 to where you don't have to be like, oh, I'll wait till all 3 of them are out. For the debut author, guys, I'm the same way, guys. I like a series to be finished before I start reading. But for a debut author, I think that really hurts them to do that. So if you plan on reading the series when it's done, hey, do the guy a solid and click the link below and at least buy the book for him. Give him, so Orbit will realize, okay, this guy's got something, and I think it's going to be, because I think he's going to be around for a while. I think that this guy, like I said, he's onto a really, really neat idea here. But again, very good fantasy, very unique fantasy that I think you're going to find plenty that you do enjoy here. And just look at that cover, guys. The cover for this is just stunning. And yes, I say it, sound like a broken record. I know you guys have heard me say this before, but I always say don't judge a book by its cover unless it's awesome. And this one is definitely awesome. And I won't lie, it's the whole reason I decided to give it a chance. That title with that tagline, "No man is above the law," and then that cover. Of course I'm going to check that out. That just sounds awesome, right? So I say tell me you don't want to read it just for that. But my final thoughts here, guys, I think, like I said, I think he's onto something here. I think this is an author that's going to be around in the fantasy community for a while. So I think that this is definitely one who he has a really neat idea. He's running with it. He feels fresh. This almost feels like that next generation kind of thing that I've kind of been waiting for, where everyone stops either trying to just write Name of the Wind again, write Lord of the Rings again, or just completely just be so just brutal and hopeless that it's not even enjoyable because they realize that this grimdark thing has some legs. This doesn't fall into any of those categories. This is something that I really can't categorize because it just feels so unique. I can't even think of anything to compare it to, except, like I said, going back to Agatha Christie, and that's not a comparison I would ever make with a fantasy novel. And I don't want you guys going into this thinking it's an Agatha Christie novel. What I just mean is that it has that mystery that made me think of like a Poirot adventure set in a medieval kind of setting. Would be a really, really neat idea, and I feel like he kind of really ran with it here. But he plants those seeds really, really well. He does give you some answers in this, but you can tell there's stuff that he's planning for what's coming for books 2 and 3. And honestly, I can't wait, guys. I believe he's doing the Joe Abercrombie method once per month or once per year, every February. He's going to put out each book every February. So I love seeing that. More authors now that are just, they've got their story written, and they're just going to kind of fine tune it along the way so they meet their deadlines and always get the book out on time. So that's when I don't mind starting a series that isn't complete yet. When I know I'm not going to have to wait that long between books, I'll always go ahead and hop on it. But yeah, those hooks are there for me, guys, and I can't wait for book 2, and I can't wait for you guys to read this. This is definitely a recommend for me. I think you're going to enjoy it. You're going to get through it really quick. It's just barely over 400 pages, and it is very much a page turner. You're not going to be able to put it down. This is one of those I was like, I'll see if I got time, I'll fit it in. And I just peeked at it, and I realized I read the first 15% of the book in one sitting, and I was like, okay, well, I'm definitely in now. So yeah, I think that you will be in right away. The beginning of this is just so good, and you're going to be so intrigued that you're not going to be able to stop. So definitely a recommend from me, guys. So Justice of Kings, guys, have you read it? What did you think? Drop in the comments below and let me know, and I will talk to you there.